Good morning. Today, paragraph is about bottled water, which title in, in problems with bottled water. Let's start. Bottled water is a convenient product when you need a quick drink. However, where is it made and why does it cost so much? Tap water is not an universal luxury. It's estimated that more than 800 million people around the world do not have safe drink water. And even in the US, cities had to use bottled water instead of tap water. The tap water had again facilities or toxic chemical in the water supply. Bottled water is not better or cleaner than tap water. Tap water has more law more laws than bottled water. However, bottled water costs more. Bottled water has a huge environmental impact. It usually comes from a lake, spring, or underground aquifer, and on average, manufacturers need 3 liters of water to make 1 liter of bottled water. To make plastic bottles, they need billions of gallons of oil every year and 2,000 times more energy than tap water needs. The difficult word is convenient, which means useful to a purpose, universal luxury, something that everyone has and is pleasant. Aquifer means a layer of rock, sand, or earth that contain water. So let's listen to the original record.
Bottled water is a convenient product when you need a quick drink. However, where is it made, and why does it cost so much? Tap water isn't a universal luxury. It's estimated that more infrastructure 800 million people around the world don't have safe drinking water, and even in the US, cities had to use bottled water instead of tap water. The tap water had aging facilities or toxic chemicals in the water supply. Bottled water isn't better or cleaner than tap water. Tap water has more laws than bottled water, however, bottled water costs more. Bottled water has a huge environmental impact. It usually comes from a lake, spring, or underground aquifer, and on average, manufacturers need 3 liters of water to make 1 liter of bottled water. To make plastic bottles, they need billions of gallons of oil every year and 2,000 times more energy than tap water needs.
Uh, Now we will go to the show in YouTube regarding this matter.
How much have you thought about bottled water? It's such a simple product, probably an afterthought in the fridge at the convenience store, in the fridge at home, or stockpiled in your trunk in case you get stuck on the side of the road. But where did it come from? How did that water get from wherever it was to inside of the bottle? And why are we paying several dollars at a time for something that comes at a fraction of the cost straight from the tap? The answers to those questions reveal the true impact of bottled water, both environmentally and ethically. And that impact is worth considering the next time you buy a bottle. Now, before we get into it, we should note that tap water is not a universal luxury. CDC estimates suggest that more than 800 million people around the world don't have safe drinking water. And even in the United States, cities have had to rely on bottled alternatives to tap water for weeks, months, or even years at a time. Cities like Jackson, Mississippi, Newark, New Jersey, as well as both Flint and Benton Harbor in Michigan, have needed to rely on bottled water in recent years due to aging infrastructure or toxic chemicals in their water supply. Stories we've unpacked before here on In the Loop. But if you're just going to the supermarket and buying a water bottle, you're getting a product that is far more expensive than what you get via tap.
When people are thirsty, it's a really appealing drink. That bottle of water that you buy in a cold case for $1.29, it's cheap in terms of the fact that you can slide $2 bills or 6 quarters on the counter and you're done. You could fill that bottle of water every day for 3,500 days, 9 years from your tap, before the tap water cost $1.29.
Charles Fishman, a contributing editor for the business magazine Fast Company, wrote a book about the economics of bottled water entitled The Big Thirst: The Secret Life and Turbulent Future of Water.
It's not better than tap water. It's not cleaner than tap water. In fact, tap water is much more tightly regulated than bottled water by state, local, federal government.
And that bottle has more costs than just what you pay for it at the store. Bottled water has a huge environmental impact. The water comes from a source, likely a lake, spring, or underground aquifer. On average, the manufacturer will have to use 3 liters of water just to produce 1 liter, roughly 34 fluid ounces, of water that can be bottled. At the plant that makes plastic bottles for water, they'll have to use roughly 2,000 times the energy needed to produce tap water. Much of America's plastic is made with energy from burned oil. Considering that bottled water is one of the most popular drinks in the US and consumers drink tens of billions of bottles each year, we're talking about tens of billions of gallons of oil used just to make water bottles each year. The bottle may have to go hundreds or thousands of miles on planes, trucks, or ships to get to your local store, with brands like Evian and Fiji shipping their water from France and Fiji, respectively. That bottle also usually just gets used once, with most of them not getting recycled after use. Michael O'Heaney, executive director at the environmental nonprofit The Story of Stuff Project, told us it can get even more costly when you factor how it got made.
Plastics fundamentally are products derived from oil and gas. And so part of the reason you see this huge growth in single-use plastics is less about demand, is less about consumers saying, I really want more single-use plastics in my life, and more about the sort of glut of hydrocarbons, and most specifically, the glut of fracked natural gas available in the United States.
Put all together, and your water has been through a lot before you drink it. Peter Glick is the co-founder and president emeritus of the Pacific Institute, an environmental nonprofit. He also wrote the book Bottled and Sold, a book about why we consume so much bottled water.
We have federal laws, the federal standard, the Safe Drinking Water Act, that defines standards for our tap water, that protect our tap water to a very high degree, that require that water agencies test tap water on a constant basis. I wouldn't argue that tap water is safer necessarily than bottled water, but it's certainly not any less safe than bottled water, which also has standards to bring it up to about the standard that our tap water has to meet.
And don't even get us started on the labeling of it all. 2 of the biggest water bottle brands, the Coca-Cola-owned Dasani and the PepsiCo-owned Aquafina, bottle purified water using what's called reverse osmosis filtration. That's one way of saying that they literally just use the same source as tap water. The advocacy group Food and Water Watch estimates that nearly 2/3 of bottled water sold in the United States comes from the same source as municipal tap water. That's gotten some folks really upset, and it's led to efforts to block companies from taking water from the tap supply and bottling it for sale. Legislation in Michigan and Maine proposed restricting the bottling of tap water or taxing companies that do it. But the most significant effort to address the issue came in Washington state. Legislators proposed making it the first state to ban water bottlers from using waters from springs and aquifers. The bill died in a state house committee, but legislators are hoping to address the issue in the future. State Senator Rufin Carlisle, a Democrat, introduced the bill.
Introducing this legislation was to recognize that bottled water companies were buying the rights to water, which in the West are a big deal, purchasing up the rights to water to basically get in front of the queue, in front of tribes, in front of agriculture, in front of regular neighborhoods, to be able to purchase that water right so they can bottle it and then, in effect, ship it around the world.
But there are criticisms of the idea of governing water too much or developing a free alternative. In Washington, a Republican legislator told residents that water law changes can take years to develop and should require broad discussions about the effects because of the potential for unintended consequences. But Carlisle points to another source of political pressure: the bottled water industry.
I think that the industry reacted with such a vigorous lobbying opposition and such a fierce opposition because they saw this legislation as existential threat to their ability to supersede and jump in front of the line and get access to these water systems in order to bottle it up and resell it.
And there's economic pressure too. A lot of that comes down to what you're actually buying when you buy a water bottle.
Bottled water is a great convenience. It's really appealing. You know, when you've been on a run, when you've been at the gym, when you're really thirsty, if you step into a convenience store and you look in the cold case and there's a bottle of water there sort of glistening in its clear plastic bottle for $1.29, that seems really appealing.
So we've come to